Are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Tuesday, December 21st. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are brought to you by No House Advantage. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But first, before we do anything, again, since it's the holiday season, you can give out likes. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how'd it go for you on Monday?
Not too well. Joel Embiid kind of broke the slate, and I paid down for centers that did really well instead of getting to Embiid. So didn't have a good good Monday, but was pretty happy actually with how I played. Like got to a lot of what I think were really good plays at low ownership. Some of them worked, some didn't. Embiid made it all irrelevant anyway. But I think put myself in that position a lot, and I'll have some good days.
Did you get to any Murray?
Yeah, I was around the field. I think I was a little bit underweight originally, and then when I late swapped prior to like the 9:00 game, I got back to like even with the field.
Okay. Yeah. Another big one there. 67.9 on FanDuel, 67.5.
Obviously wish
you had to have Embiid and
amounts,
Murray.
I obviously wish my massive amounts of Mitchell had been Murray instead, but
yeah, for sure. Yeah, not a great one out of Mitchell. 37.5 DK points in 34 minutes. A little depressing. Sucks to waste a 50-point or close to 50-point Jakob Poeltl game too on a day where it becomes. I mean, well, did you still need him?
No, because Freedom went for 31,
right?
Embiid went for 70, whatever. Gobert had like 55, Poeltl had 50. Like I'm sure you could have made a really good lineup with like Gobert, Poeltl, but it was,
even Embiid, Poeltl.
Yeah, Embiid, yeah. But it was still, I think, close to irrelevant.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I didn't really look into that. We got 5 games here today. Lots of continued. We have no idea what's happening because of COVID type stuff. So that'll be quite the journey. Make sure you're watching the deeper dive and live before lock throughout the day. I'm ready to dive in if you are.
Yeah, I'm actually looking now, though. I didn't look to see what lineup actually won last night. So I'm curious now that you mentioned that.
Well, I'll let you pull that up and then you can tell us.
Oh, so, it was Embiid, Poeltl.
See, when you're good, you're good.
Second was Freedom, Embiid. Third was Freedom, Embiid. Fourth was Freedom, Embiid. Fifth was Freedom, Embiid.
Well, yeah. At least I was right.
Ball, White, Green, McDaniels, Embiid, Murray, Lee, Poeltl was the winner.
Okay. Who ended up starting for the Warriors? I didn't look.
Lee and Kuminga, and then Kuminga got hurt.
Oh, the bucket got the start.
Yeah, so that was actually why I recrunched prior to the 9:00 games. Managed to go from like 30% lead to like 15% lead, kind of spread it out between like Lee, Kuminga, Iggy, all those guys. Kuminga scored, I played 6 minutes, I think had like 6 fantasy points. Lee had 29 and a quarter, so that was a really good decision.
Yeah, there you go. Smart one. All right, here we go. The Indiana Pacers, coin flip matchup against the Miami Heat, 208 total. For Indiana, this one's easy. They don't have anybody dealing with COVID. TJ Warren, TJ McConnell, both out with injuries. Malcolm Brogdon is off the injury report. Miami, on the other hand, a little bit different. No Jimmy Butler, no PJ Tucker, no Bam Adebayo, no Markieff Morris, no Caleb Martin. Q tag on Tyler Hero. So we can start on the Indiana side. No ownership coming into this Pacers team on DraftKings. They have just generally been priced a bit too high on DK for a bit now. Highest owned guy on DraftKings for the Pacers, 7.5% to either Brogdon or Turner. Very different story on FanDuel. Turner, 29% owned at 6,500, has power forward eligibility. Karis LeVert, 23% owned on FanDuel, 6,500, shooting guard, small forward eligible. Sabonis, 19% owned, 9K, power forward center. Then you get to Brogdon at 13% owned. I actually think Brogdon might be the best play of this entire bunch based on that ownership. Brogdon, Sabonis, LeVert, Turner. I'm happy to get to all of them on FanDuel. The ownership is there as well. What do you do with them on DraftKings?
I think they look reasonable here as well. The pricing, I think, is pretty close to correct, but you're not getting much ownership either. So it does make them appealing in tournaments. Brogdon at 8,100, assuming he's not going to be limited after a brief absence. He looks good. Miles Turner at 6,800 always offers, tournament upside. Karis LeVert's getting to a price point that is kind of difficult given the changes in Indiana's rotation recently, where he hasn't been essentially running point off the bench with Justin Holiday back. He's been playing most of his minutes with Sabonis and Brogdon, so that makes it more difficult. But in particular, I think Brogdon and Turner look pretty good.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see Brogdon's low ownership on FanDuel today. I mean, 7,800 is whatever, but 13% owned. Like, I like him in a GPP more so than going to the guys that are already pulling it. But all four guys are just priced in a nice way. And the fact that you get MPEs on all four, Brogdon, Sabonis, LeVert, and Turner, in particular, Sabonis and Turner, that is so valuable. So dumb that Miles Turner gets power forward eligibility, but it's certainly helpful.
Yeah, especially on a site where blocks are worth so much too.
Right. What do we do with the rest of this team? Can you get to Duarte, Justin Holiday? Or is O'Shea Brissett a value option for you at 3,500?
I think it's pretty tough to get anywhere else. Brissett at 3,500 makes some sense. He played like 20 minutes last game. I expect that to be about what he averages now that Holiday is back. You did have Justin Holiday start ahead of Duarte last game. I don't think that really matters from a DFS standpoint. Duarte still was closing the halves and still played, I think, like 29 minutes. But it just, is a change, I guess, worth noting. But I think outside of the main guys, Brissett at 3,500, probably the first spot that I would take dart throws at.
Okay. And we saw, I don't know was Keelan Martin out for this most recent game? Because we saw Jeremy Lamb play 25 minutes. Keelan Martin didn't see the floor. I don't think it matters,
remember.
But
I don't remember. I attributed Lamb's playing to Brogdon being out mostly.
Sure.
Like Craig played also, which doesn't normally happen.
Correct. Yeah, the Martin one was weird, but when they're at full strength, I don't think it matters whether Keelan Martin plays today or not. Anything else for Indiana? It's just a pretty cut and dry team.
Yeah, that's how I see it too.
This one's not so much cut and dry. We got to start here. Do we expect Tyler Hero to be in this game? He has not played in the past 4, I believe. 3. Sorry, 3.
I'll probably put him in. I mean, it's the first game of the night, so I'm not too worried about it. But it does obviously have a pretty big impact.
I have him in as well. So at least we're talking about the same thing. We have him in with regards to our ownership projections. He's 6,200 on FanDuel, 7K on DraftKings. I don't find him to be all that interesting. Here are the pieces that are getting ownership. $7,800 Kyle Lowry on FanDuel, $4,700 Duncan Robinson on FanDuel and DraftKings, but he's 4,800 there. But the highest owned guy in this game on DraftKings, Omer Yurtseven, 19.7% owned, $3,500 center. I think it makes some sense.
What am I missing?
No PJ Tucker.
Okay.
They don't have any other big men. The next tallest guy on this team, other than Dedmon and Yurtseven, is KZ Okpala.
Right. But has Yurtseven played a single minute next to Dedmon?
Does it matter?
Yes.
Well, I mean, like, obviously that gets better, but 28-20 makes Yurtseven look like a decent per minute guy, right?
Yeah, like he looks like a decent value, but like, are we playing 20% owned guys that might play 20 minutes?
I'm not saying 20% ownership is good. I'm just saying I understand how it's happening, but I doubt they play alongside each other. That would be surprising to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I think Yurtseven's fine. I think he's a good value. I'm kind of surprised, I guess, that like we have him with a 29% chance of being in the optimal. We have him with like a 49% boom percentage. I don't know. Maybe that.
How many minutes do we give him?
24. That'll do it.
Okay. Yeah. I got him at 20. I got him in the optimal in 5% of lineups. So
we have Dedmon at 26 minutes. So I guess we have them playing a couple minutes next to each other.
Yeah. I have no concept of if they can do that or not.
I'm double checking this season just to see if it's happened.
Yeah.
I don't think it has, but no, nothing. What about preseason?
They probably didn't even play in the preseason.
Yeah. Yurtseven has 0 possessions alongside Dedmon so far.
I mean, they're both 7 feet tall. Like they're not like fake centers. They're real centers.
Yeah. I mean, it is Sabonis and Turner though.
Sure.
Like you could.
Oh yeah. Like I don't think it's crazy if they played 4 minutes alongside each other today.
But
what do you want to be projecting Yurtseven at from a minutes perspective, where you start to think that 19% ownership seems more reasonable?
I think I'll probably end up going like 26, 22 or something, because like it's not like 28 minutes for Dedmon is guaranteed, but 26, 22, 28, 20. I think it still makes the ownership, I think, still will look reasonable. It's just like, I guess I was a little bit surprised, not even so much by the ownership as by like the boom percentage and the optimal percentage, but at 24 minutes, that makes sense. I don't think I go to 24 minutes.
Yeah, I have 28-20 in there right now. If I had to go back to the drawing board and go to like 28-22, I think that's pretty reasonable. obviously he is a quick foul from Dwayne Dedmon away from getting those minutes sort of by default, at which point it's going to look good. 1.11 fantasy points per minute over the past 30 days for Yurt-7. So he's been super functional.
Yeah. I think he's a good play. I was just a little bit caught off guard by like how good we were projecting.
What else stands out to you from Miami? Because this is a really tricky team.
So if Hero's in, not a whole lot. Like Lowry's gotten expensive. Hero's relatively expensive. Vincent's gotten expensive. Robinson and Strus are relatively expensive. I wouldn't mind taking some shots at Okpala, but he's not a great fantasy producer, and who knows how many minutes he plays. But yeah, if Hero's in, I don't really see a whole lot there outside of the center position. If Hero's out, I still don't mind taking some shots at Vincent, Robinson, Strus. There's going to be a lot of minutes available.
Yeah, this is just a game where you're going to get a little bit of Miami in a lot of stuff. You're going to get some shares of Kyle Lowry, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson with shooting guard, small forward eligibility, Dedmon, Strus. Like, that's going to happen. None of it just looks good. It's just, like, you just have to play them because they play.
If this were a smaller, I'm really interested in what they do next to Dedmon, because if this were a smaller team, I would really, really like Strus. He closed with Tucker out last game. He closed. The closing lineup was Lowry, Vincent, Robinson, essentially Robinson, Strus, Dedmon. But here it's like Okpala could certainly play more minutes, which isn't the best from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, I gave Strus 28 at 4,700 shooting guard, small forward. I think he looks underrepresented at 3%.
Yeah, I think if he's going to be 3% owned, he looks like a good tournament option, just because when teams get shorthanded like this, I mean, beggars can't be choosers. There's a chance that they just say, okay, look, this is what we're going with. We think this is our best lineup. And if it can't stop Sabonis and Turner, then oh well. So like, I still think that there's a path to him playing a lot of minutes here.
Yeah.
I would just feel more confident if it were a smaller front court.
What the hell do we do with this team if Hero's out again? Strus for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really shorthanded.
That'll be ugly. I mean, obviously we've seen it, but we have to replace PJ Tucker minutes, which is not ideal. Might see Udonis Haslem today.
He did play not that long ago.
6 minutes on December 3rd. Sure, that was just what he was expecting that morning when he woke up.
Yeah, it was in the first half too, if I remember
right. Probably. That sounds right to me. All right, let's say that Hero is in. Are you worried about groups for this Miami team?
Not that will really matter, I don't think.
Okay. That's fine. Let's keep it moving then.
Are you playing Dedmon and Yurt-7 together?
8,800. So you're looking for 64 between the two of them? Probably not.
Yeah,
I'd want to see how much it's coming up first before I set a rule to fully exclude it.
Right.
And I don't know that it would be coming up all that frequently. I would have to give Yurt-7 2 more minutes right now for it to be something that showed up regularly. Feels like it's not necessary.
It kind of reminds me of that Gobert Whiteside spot from a couple of weeks ago, where like Whiteside was 3,300 and Gobert was, I think, 8,400. So it was like, if you just went 33-15 or whatever, Whiteside projected well and Gobert projected well. And it was kind of like, I was really on the fence, because even if you give them their average projections, they both look like good plays. But at the same time, to win a tournament, you still typically need like all of your guys to do better than average. So I still doubt that I play them together, but I think it is kind of borderline, especially on a 5-game slate.
I can't imagine getting to that sort of build in limited entries.
Yeah. And it's not like it's a bad center slate either. There's plenty of other good plays.
For sure. All righty. Schedule for the rest of the day. NFL strategy show coming up at 11 a.m. We've got the Prize Picks college football show coming up at 3. The No House Advantage NBA show coming in at 3:30. And then we're going every hour on the half hour. NFL Live Before Lock at 4:30. NBA Deeper Dive at 5:30. And the NBA Live Before Lock show at 6:30. So just remember, everybody, 7:30 lock tonight. NBA projections are free, so that should help you guys out if you are playing this NBA slate tonight. And I assume if you're watching this show that you are, well, you're in luck. Our projections are free for you. Lots to talk about on this next one. Detroit 9.5 point dogs in New York, 207 total. For the Pistons, it's kind of just normal. No Jeremy Grant injury, no Kelly Olynyk, Hamidou Diallo in, Corey Joseph in. On the Knicks side, not normal. No RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, Obi Toppin, Miles McBride, Quentin Grimes, or Kevin Knox. They've signed Damian Dotson and Matt Mooney. Jericho Sims evidently with the G League. And then Derrick Rose is questionable. So we'll start on the Pistons side. Aggressive ownership for Cunningham, Bay, and Stewart on FanDuel. I think it's all fully warranted. Cunningham, Bay, Stewart, all basically like 25 to 30% owned. On DraftKings, Stewart is in double digits at 15. Cunningham and Bay are basically rounded up to 10. Diallo gets to 10. Trey Lyles gets to close to 10. How are you seeing Detroit on the DraftKings side? I don't love them nearly as much as I like them on FanDuel.
Yeah, the pricing is definitely less favorable. 8,600 for Cunningham. Like Alex and I talked about this the other day on a show we did together. He's basically like you're paying for his upside, but then a high enough percentage of people are doing the same thing. Like if he's 10% owned, I would rather just typically not be there, find some other options. It would be different if you were like 2% and you're just like, okay, well, he can still score 50 plus fantasy points and look really, really good at 8,600. But there's just not at his current projected ownership, I don't think there's a whole lot of reason to get there. Stewart, I think, looks okay at 5,100. We expect the Knicks to give 48 minutes to centers, and Stewart can play a lot. I mean, he only played 20 minutes last game. He was dealing with some foul trouble there, but 2 games ago, he played a ton. So we know that if he can avoid foul trouble, he can be on the floor a lot. Makes him kind of interesting in tournaments. One thing that stood out from last game was that Saban Lee and Killian Hayes played a lot more than 48 minutes. Hayes played 35.6 minutes. Lee played 19 minutes. So kind of interesting there. Lee isn't a bad fantasy producer, but he's also up to 4,300 on DraftKings. So still makes it kind of tough to get there. Hayes is a bad fantasy producer, but only 3,800. I do think that he is mildly interesting if he's only going to get 3% ownership, given that when he plays well, he clearly can play 36 minutes.
I don't have too much else to add here on the FanDuel side of it all. Just Cunningham, Bay, and Stewart are all either better priced or better positioned. Cunningham is $900 cheaper on FanDuel. Sadiq Bey is $1,300 cheaper on FanDuel. And Isaiah Stewart is $500 more expensive, but he has power forward eligibility instead of center, which is very appealing. So those are the 3 guys that I think you should be concentrating your ownership to from a FanDuel perspective. And then we get into the Knicks. So Julius Randle and Alec Burks are both 45 to 50% owned on FanDuel. I think they should be heavily owned. I'm not surprised by that at all. Randle is 8,800. Brooks is 5,600. Yes, 5,600. $2,000 cheaper than he is on DraftKings. Randle, $1,500 cheaper on FanDuel in comparison to DraftKings. The chalk plays that we're getting on the DK side, other than Randle, be $5,100 Evan Fournier, shooting guard, small forward, and $5,200 Kemba Walker, who got the start this last time out. I don't really know where to start here. Let's go with this. Do you think Derrick Rose is playing today?
I have no idea.
Okay. I have him in. Our ownership projections have him in.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious that our ownership projections have Rose in, but then we also have Kemba getting 17%.
Well, I have them both in as well with some sizable minutes. I gave Kemba 28 minutes. I gave Rose 32.
Yeah, I guess. So you think Kemba's just back?
For right now, with no RJ Barrett, no Quickly, yeah, like I think they need what he brings to the table.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, he is still cheap. So yeah, if you give him 26 to 28 minutes, he looks fine. It's just
go ahead.
Can they play him and Rose together? Or are they just going to give minutes to anybody else?
I think they can. I mean, you could stagger them as much as you possibly can, play a little bit alongside each other. It's
the Pistons. Who cares if you have a bad defender on Killian Hayes?
Right. Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel, and Taj Gibson all played this last time out. We could have that conversation, but we saw Taj play 22 minutes, Mitchell Robinson play 22 minutes, Nerlens Noel play 25 minutes. So I've got all 3 of those guys. And you said the Knicks are going to play 2 centers. The Knicks are going to play 3 centers today. But they will be playing alongside of each other, which meant Julius Randle was the 3 for a little bit of this most recent game. We could talk about that however we want. Very interesting though, that like he's just going to get more minutes. How do you want to handle the centers? Robinson, Noel, Taj. Can you go to anybody with any sort of priority?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of them look like priorities, but I think that they are mildly appealing in tournaments just because, Robinson at 4,400 running with the second unit, going up against the Pistons does certainly give you a nice ceiling. Taj Gibson's 3,200. I mean, if he plays 20 to 22 minutes again, that's not the worst play in the world, especially with power forward eligibility, makes him a little bit more valuable. So as long as they're not getting any ownership, I have some interest. If they start to become popular, then I become a lot less interested.
Chat seems to be very against Alec Burks at 7,600, so I'm pretty confident Alec Burks is going to have a big game today.
Yeah, I don't really feel strongly one way or the other. Like he's going to play like 40 minutes. If he were cheaper, he would just be really popular.
Yeah, I think he's a completely reasonable play at 10% ownership. Like that makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, he's not great. He has started 10 games now. He's averaged 0.78 DraftKings points per minute. So you have seen the per minute production drop with the starting unit, which makes plenty of sense. But he's averaging 37 minutes per game. I assume you get probably even more than that tonight. So at relatively low ownership, I don't mind it. It's certainly not a priority though. But it's not. I don't think it's like a crazy price tag. Like if Chad hadn't mentioned it and you hadn't brought it up, I probably just wouldn't have like said anything about it one way or the other.
Yeah. Who do you think the best play is for the Knicks on DraftKings today? Fournier?
Yeah, that's disgusting. Some combination of Kemba, Fournier, Rose, if Rose is in.
Yeah. $7,200 Rose is a healthy price tag. Like,
I mean, he was playing 34 to 36 minutes before he missed the games. I don't know if he'd be limited or not, but yeah, I mean, it's tough right now without knowing Rose because when Rose comes back, even though all these guys still need to play, it does throw a wrench into their floors essentially. Like, Fournier doesn't have to play 42 minutes if he's not playing well. Kemba doesn't have to play a lot of minutes if he's not playing well. There's still, different paths they can take, especially if they are apparently willing to play Taj Gibson at the 4. So if Rose is back, not only does it take usage away from some of these guys, but it makes it so like you can't count on those minutes. Whereas if Rose is out, you're getting a $5,100 Fournier that basically is going to play 40 minutes and, take your chances.
This is a really tricky game. If Rose is in, it's even trickier if Rose is in. It's just, I have no idea what they do with Kemba Walker at that point in time. I think he's just going to play a bunch. I don't think they're going to jerk around Kemba Walker and start him and play him 37 minutes and then bury him the next game. That doesn't feel like something Tibbs would do to an actual vet.
Somebody said there's a lot of players that play 40 minutes and don't do anything, referring to the Burks price tag. One, no, there's not. Like, barely anybody plays 40 minutes. And two, Burks is averaging like 0.8 fantasy points per minute as a starter. So not really the guy you're referring to.
If chat is the barometer on Alec Burks, he's the best play of today.
Like he's slightly on DraftKings, he's slightly more expensive than he should be. But I don't think it's anything. I think Cade Cunningham's more overpriced than Alec Burks is.
He's certainly not overpriced on FanDuel at 5,600.
Especially if Rose is out.
Yeah. The $5,600 price on FanDuel. I understand why you're 50% owned.
I do agree. So I do agree with Chad on this one regarding Fournier, and especially if Rose is in. But Fournier is just the type of guy where when he's popular, I'm not really that scared of getting away from him. He's still probably a little bit underpriced if he's going to play 40 minutes. Say he averages 0.75 fantasy points per minute. But at 5,200, there's going to be other options that give you a similar range of outcomes. Definitely the type of player that I care a lot about where his ownership's coming in at.
Not to mention shooting guard, small forward eligibility. He's going to naturally go up because he fits in every single lineup construction you want to put together.
Right.
Another thing that will drive up his ownership a little bit more. Keep your eye on the news because that Derrick Rose news will be very, very important. Anything else for the Knicks?
Nope.
All righty. Got to talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be No House Advantage. It's 100% peer-to-peer. And we're talking about player props, and you got to put basically a confidence on those player props. So the one that you like the most, might be worth 10 points. Second most might be worth 9, so on, all the way down the line. If you use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up, you can get a $25 deposit bonus. There's mass entry, big prize pools. We have no house advantage projections and optimal lineups already built for free on awesemo.com for you guys. That'll help you out quite a bit. I'm pulling up some of the props for today. I'm going to hit Adam with a couple of the goods. What can we go with that would be very interesting for today? Let's say Evan Fournier over under 17.5 real points.
17.5 actual points for Fournier.
Yeah.
Under.
Yeah, I like the under there a lot. There's not a lot of upside in that one, in my opinion. If we want to go to another one, let's hit up our boy, Alec Burks, 15.5 real points.
I'll take the over.
Yeah, I got him at 16.8, so I would happily take that over as well. Let's work our way back. One more. Where's Cade at? Is he just not even a part of this? Are they in a different order for some reason? No, just Cade Cunningham, not one of the guys that you can get to, but Goga Batadze is. That sure. Josh Jackson over under 10.5 fantasy points. It's a shame that he probably won't see the floor because I would snap take that under.
He played 10 minutes last game.
Did he really? I don't have him in the rotation for today.
He doesn't have to be,
but he did not play the last game.
Was their last game not the 18th?
Nope, 19th.
It would help if I knew how to use Control F.
Yes, it would.
Okay, that makes more sense because I knew that Killian Hayes was in foul trouble last game because I was watching the game. And then I'm looking and I'm like, how did he play 36 minutes? And the foul trouble is just like not showing up. He played 20 minutes last game. It was 2 games ago I was talking about.
Thanks for people are roasting me for the Alec Burks take, which I felt like was more yours than mine. So
it wasn't even a take. I just said he's correctly priced. He's like projected for 34 DraftKings points. What do you want his price to be?
Right. Ooh, here's one. Wow. Why would you not bring in a rebound? So there are 3 options for Dwayne Dedmon. 9.5 points, 10.5 points plus assists, or 1.5 assists. How does he not have a rebound one? Why are we giving Dwayne Dedmon 1.5 assist props?
Yeah, it's a random one.
Very weird. All right, final one. Kyle Lowry, 22.5 real points.
21.5 real points for Lowry.
22.5.
Yeah, 22.5. So, I mean, with Hero in, I have the under. With Hero out,
I'm crushing the under.
Yeah, probably still have the under.
Yeah. All righty. So let's move it on to the Portland Trailblazers. 1-point favorites in New Orleans, 219.5 total. For Portland, the biggest question mark we have here is a giant question mark that changes everything depending on when the news comes in. And that would be Damian Lillard with a Q tag, injured right hamstring. I have him in for right now. That should be no surprise. And if he is in, one of my favorite plays of the day, looks great at 8,600 on FanDuel. Still happy to get to him at 9,800 on DraftKings. Norm Powell is like 25% owned across both sites. He'll be even higher than that if Dame happens to be out. Larry Nance is about 20 to 25% owned across both sites. Nas Little on DraftKings is only 4,200. Looks great. Nurk, who the hell knows how many minutes he's going to play. I think he looks very interesting across both sites. I really like Portland here.
I really like Portland here too. It's a good matchup. The Pelicans don't play very well defensively. We've seen Nurkic pretty consistently playing 30 plus minutes recently with them being shorthanded. Played about 33.5 against Memphis last game. Now you get another matchup against the front court that we know is going to play actual centers. So I think it's likely Nurkic plays a lot at 6,900, makes him look good. Dame at 9,800, he's been playing better for the most part. The rates go up without McCollum, as you would expect. Norman Powell is decent at 6,400 if Dame is in. He looks fantastic if Dame is out because he's going to need to take on a much bigger role usage-wise. Larry Nance starting, typically playing 28 to 30 minutes. Nas Little playing really anywhere from 20 to 36 minutes in recent games. But on average, I expect him to be in the low 30s at 4,200. Makes him look okay. If one of Nance or Little falters or Nurkic falters, you could certainly see Robert Covington play a lot. He played 34 minutes last game, even in a game where Nurkic, Nance, and Little all played a lot. I don't even know entirely where the hell those minutes came from, but he found 34 minutes. So yeah, it's just a lot of. I think Dame and Nurkic, Dame assuming he's in, look like the priorities for me. But I think that all of Powell, Nance, Little, Covington look reasonable as well. Even Anthony Simons, who's down to 4,500, he's kind of lost some playing time. Oh, hang on. Yeah, no, never mind. He's lost some playing time recently with like Little and Covington playing more, but you could certainly see, more Simons and less of Little potentially in any given game.
Yeah. Not to mention it's the Pelicans. It's not like they run big by any means.
Right.
Anthony Simons played 30 minutes and 32 and a half minutes 2 games prior to these most recent 2. Like,
right.
I think it's just going to be like random. You never really know, hot hand type stuff, whether it's Simons, Little, Covington. Like, I don't think we can map that out.
The way I've typically been projecting it is like 30 minutes to the starters, to Little and to Nance, and then like 26 to 28 to like Simons and Covington, realizing that like all of those can go several minutes in either direction. But yeah, like if the Pels close,
Simons at 2.5% ownership, like that works in the GPP.
Yeah, I agree completely. Because the minutes are there if he's playing well, and then also, I mean, the Pelicans can just close with like Graham, Alexander Walker, Hart, Ingram, Joval, and there's no real issue with Simons and Lillard both being on the floor. No,
not at all. If Lillard isn't playing today, we're just jamming all things Portland, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Simons goes from 2.5% owned to 40% owned, probably 50% owned.
Yeah, at least.
You're just jamming that in. Ben McLemore becomes pretty interesting as a pay down option. Norm Powell, I assume, just gets like a really crazy usage rate bump. I haven't looked at it, but he'll go up. Does anybody else become interesting, or is it just sort of like all of the guys that are already playing, nobody else cracks into it?
I think it's pretty much just the guys that are playing.
Yeah. Like McLemore goes from not interesting today to a value play. I think he's like the only line then. But Anthony Simons is probably the highest owned guy on the slate if you get that Dame news early enough. Well, go Portland. On the Pelicans side, what do we got from a news perspective? I think they're mostly healthy. Yeah, Satoransky's off the injury report. Obviously, no fat Zion for this one. He's busy at a buffet, I'm guessing. Ingram, 20 to 25% owned across FanDuel and DraftKings. Joval, 20 to 25% owned across FanDuel and DraftKings. Josh Hart, 25-ish% owned on DK. Alexander Walker pulling a little bit of love, somewhere around the 15 mark. Most of that seems pretty reasonable to me. Like, I like Ingram, Hart, Joval. I don't love Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but I just feel like I never get him right. I don't mind the ownership at all. I don't see any priorities. I think everybody's just sort of like owned appropriately.
Yeah, the pricing seems more or less, I think, where it should be. I'm always inclined to get to Joval just because he's so good. 8,300 is a pretty decent price tag. I think he's probably the most favorably priced on DraftKings from the Pels, but there is still, just a lot of good options at this position. He is getting ownership at 23%. So I don't really have any strong takes there. Like you said, I think he's pretty much owned where he should be. Josh Hart at 5,700 makes sense. He's just playing a lot of minutes. He's around a 0.9 DraftKings points per minute guy, and just not very expensive. Alexander Walker and Graham, I would prefer them if they were a little bit less expensive, just because I think there is a lot of volatility there, but they're pretty cheap. It is only a 5-game slate, so I don't mind them. And then I'll make my obligatory Guillermo Hernan-Gomez scores a ton of fantasy points per minute. If anything happens to Joval, you're getting a 2% owned $3,700 guy that is going to score 1 million points.
He's so bad defensively. I know it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about here. The Dunked On podcast was talking about how they give up like 132 points per 100 possessions or something when he's the starting center. And he's been like a 6th percentile on-off difference defensively for 4 or 5 years. They just get truck sticked anytime he's out there.
Just make some Nurkic plus Hernan-Gomez correlation stacks.
Honestly, it's really not a bad idea. Or probably bump up Nance too, I guess. But yeah, if Willie Hernan-Gomez has to be out there for a bit, Portland's hanging 140.
Yeah. So five Blazer onslaught with Willie Hernan-Gomez run back.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. I mean, Hernan-Gomez, 1.34 FanDuel points per minute over the last 30 days. That's it's the 12th highest rate in the league in that time.
Whenever he's 2% owned, I just get some because Valanciunas, like, it's not like he gets in foul trouble a lot, but he gets in foul trouble often enough that $3,700 Billy Hernan-Gomez at 1% owned is going to win you some tournaments over the course of a year.
Yep. Anything else for this Pelicans team?
Nope.
All righty. The Minnesota Timberwolves are 1-point favorites in Dallas, which is interesting considering they are without Patrick Beverley, Anthony Edwards, Jared Vanderbilt, Taurean Prince, and Josh Okogie. They have signed Rajon Tucker and Chris Silva. On the opposite side, it's just as putrid. We have no Luka Doncic, no Reggie Bullock, no Willie Cauley-Stein, no Maxi Kleber, no Josh Green. Kristaps Porzingis is questionable. Feels like he's not going to play. They have signed Marquise Chris and Theo Pinson. Here goes nothing. So Minnesota, we have Jalen Noel as the highest owned guy right now. 4K on FanDuel, 3,300 on DraftKings. I think he's going to play a lot. Feels a little high for me right now because I don't know if it becomes Jalen Noel, Leandro Bolmaro, Jordan McLaughlin, but I think Noel is definitely like the leader in the clubhouse. How are you feeling about him now? 3,300 on DraftKings. That price is a little bit better than it is on 4K on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested in him. He's been pretty clearly ahead of Bolmaro recently. When Beverly was out before, you were seeing some run from Bolmaro, or I don't know if it was Beverly or Russell. One of them was out. And Bolmaro was playing a decent amount. But with Vanderbilt out and with Okogie out and with Edwards out and with Beverly out, I just have a hard time thinking that Noel's not getting pretty healthy run here just because he can play a couple different positions. He has been ahead of Bolmaro in the rotation recently. I think it's likely you're getting like mid-20s in playing time from him, and it makes him look pretty good. I
gave him 26. I just don't feel too comfortable going a lot more. If you told me that he played 32, it wouldn't shock me at all. Like somebody's going to have to do that kind of thing, but I would want to keep an eye on Bolmaro or McLaughlin to see if they fall into it, or they just bump Russell down and it's Russell, Beasley, McDaniels, Jake Lehman, Karl Anthony Towns, or they replace Jake Lehman with Naz Reid. And I think that's also reasonable too.
Last game, for what it's worth, and obviously Vanderbilt was in, but they did play. Yeah, they did play Towns alongside Reid quite a bit with Prince and Okogie out.
Yeah, so I gave Reid 20 minutes, Towns 35. So I do have them playing a pretty decent chunk alongside each other. 9,900 for Towns across both sites. That looks pretty damn good in this spot against Dallas, who has either replacement centers or no centers.
Yeah, and Edwards being out is a bump for Towns. It has been all season. Even if you go back to last year, he's been good. But so far this year, without Edwards on the floor, Towns has played 192 minutes. 1.55 DraftKings points per minute, 36.1% usage rate. Going from memory, since last year, I think it's like 33.5% usage rate or something like that for Towns. 519 minutes without Edwards, 33.3% usage rate, 1.47 DraftKings points per minute. So it is a pretty nice bump for him at a pretty appealing price tag.
Who's the best play on Minnesota?
Jalen Noel.
Okay.
Relative to ownership, actually, I think, I was hoping that there would be like a sneaky ownership guy, but I don't really think there is. Yeah, I mean, I think they all look good, but like just the value on Noel, I think makes it really easy to get him into lineups. Towns, I think, looks great. Russell, Reid, like I don't have a problem with Beasley or McDaniels either. So, it seems like the ownership's pretty much coming in where it should be, but I think that there's just a lot of good plays here.
It's interesting to see McDaniels, Noel, Reid, all 30, basically flat minimum type guys, especially Noel getting all that ownership. Bolmaro, McLaughlin, like somebody else could sneak into that 3K range for Minnesota and be a guy, and none of those guys are pulling any ownership right now. I'm really curious what they're doing. I don't really have a good finger on the pulse here, but the Towns and Russell, I'm happy to get every single share I can of those two guys for today. McDaniels just scares the shit out of me always because he's so bad on a per minute basis, but those minutes are, I don't want to say set in stone, but like they are basically set in stone. They just don't have more of him on this team right now. Does anything look bad to you here that's pulling the ownership? I mean, like 4K Jalen Noel at 29% ownership on FanDuel doesn't seem like something that I have to do. Yeah,
I mean, it seems pretty much. So the boom bust tool still has Jared Vanderbilt in, so it's throwing things off a little bit. But like
Okay.
Jalen Noel, we have with a 30% chance of being in the optimal lineup, 31% projected ownership. Beasley 17 to 16, Russell 22 to 23. Towns we have being overowned, but I know I'm higher on Towns than projections are. So I think that his ownership makes sense. And then Vanderbilt being in is throwing off the McDaniels and Reed pieces. But it kind of just seems like when I just looked at the ownership, it all seemed like it was where it should be. And then looking at the boom bust tool, it seems to, agree with that.
Anything else for Minnesota?
Nope.
Bowl season, which is what happens when my dad gets here, but that's neither here nor there. BOWLSEASON. If you're looking for college football DFS projections, 50% off. You can get them all for $25. All caps, one word, bowl season. You can see it on the screen right now. This offer ends tomorrow. If you don't get this now, you're probably not playing any college football DFS. Get the projections. You certainly want to do it. Bowl season, college football DFS. It's that time. That's all I got. We're ready to close this out. Final game.
Yep.
All righty then. The Phoenix Suns are 7-point favorites in LA against the Lakers. I went in on the Lakers today on the process show. We'll get to that in a little bit. For Phoenix.
Remember when you thought they should be favored against the Mavs?
Was right. They ended up being favored 3 hours later. That is, you and I both know that's not how that works.
All I said was that I didn't think they should be favored.
And
I didn't say I didn't think they
were
would
wrong. You were wrong.
I was completely right. I said they should not be. Oh shit! They ended up winning. Damn it! All right, I take all this back.
Keep going. Come on, tell me more. I didn't hear you right.
I thought they lost that game. They won by 3 in overtime.
Just so we're clear here, they weren't favored. I said the line made no sense and that they should have been favored. The line moved in the direction that I talked about, and they covered it. Right? All of those things happened?
Yeah, I regret bringing this up.
Shit, man, that couldn't have gone any better.
I 100% thought that Dallas was just blowing them out at one point in this game.
That's fine. I really only care about what the final score is.
No, I know, but I'm just confused.
Are you gonna try to tell me that you cashed out of the bet?
No. But I'm confused even looking at the game now because I distinctly remember seeing the score at one point and thinking, "Oh my God, Josh is an idiot. This is amazing." But I don't even see where in the game that point would have happened.
Oh, man, it is exceptional. That just couldn't have gotten any better. It's been a great morning for me. Between the slots with Ben and you just absolutely whiffing on this conversation, I'm having a great day.
I hope the NBA just cancels right now and we can just end this.
Everybody that can be normally playing for Phoenix is available here. I don't think we have a ton that we really want to talk about. Bridges, Paul, Booker, Ayton, Crowder. These are just the guys that you get to pretty regularly for Phoenix. They look better on FanDuel because they've got better pricing. We got Booker and Paul in the 20s in ownership. Bridges not too far behind. What are your priorities here for Phoenix?
Priorities? I don't really see anything. Booker coming back, it makes it so everybody looks a little bit worse. I still think, the Lakers, they play fast. They're not good. You can certainly get to Phoenix. They have a 115 implied total. But in terms of standing out relative to other plays that we've talked about on the slate, I don't see a ton. And I think that's, it's backed up in ownership with Ayton being the highest.
I'm pausing you right now. We skipped Dallas. I knew we moved through that too quickly.
Yeah.
So let's circle back to Dallas and then we'll get back into Phoenix.
They just signed George King to a 10-day contract. That's what we were waiting for.
I don't know who that is. Jalen Brunson, 25 to 30% owned, FanDuel and DraftKings. Tim Hardaway, 20 to 30% owned across FanDuel and DraftKings. We don't know the status of Kristaps Porzingis, and that is a huge piece because he is projected for 20% ownership on FanDuel. If I'm getting to anybody for this game, it's Brunson, Hardaway, DFS, and Porzingis, and probably nothing else. If Porzingis ends up out, we start working into more interesting pieces, but there's not a lot here for Dallas. But the good stuff is good. Brunson, amazing.
Yeah, Brunson looks really good. Porzingis, if he's in, looks good. Trey Burke at 3,900, I don't mind. He played 22 minutes last game. He's been getting Sorry, he played 22 minutes against the Lakers like a week ago. He had been playing decent minutes recently. In the last game against Minnesota, he played only 17 minutes, but you also have Kleba out now. So even though they're different positions, that opens up a bunch of minutes. I think that there's a pretty good chance you get mid-20s in minutes from Trey Burke, which as long as he's low owned is kind of appealing in tournaments. But I'm with you. Brunson, Porzingis, Hardaway, Finney-Smith, pretty much what we're looking at.
If Porzingis happens to get ruled out, who is the best play on this Dallas team?
$3,200 Dwight Powell.
I was going to say 3K Moses Brown.
Yeah. And even if Porzingis is in, Powell actually I think looks okay. I think there's a good chance he plays more minutes with Kleba out. He doesn't have to though. You could certainly just see more run for the other centers, but yeah, like there's still risk because on the one hand, like they could just play Powell like 26 minutes and he would look pretty good at 3,200. But on the other hand, he could still play 20 minutes and then Brown goes from 10 to 16 and Boban plays like 8 or something. So like there's still ways that center position can go, but it would at least make it so I'm taking shots at the minimum salary centers and hoping to hit on one of them.
Pay close attention to the ownership here. We have no idea what's going to be going on with Dallas, and that Porzingis news is going to be a huge piece. Hopefully we get it earlier rather than later. Let's circle it back to Phoenix. We can get back into that one now. I'd start wherever you would like. They're just really uninteresting, but certainly playable.
So we're back to Phoenix now?
Yeah.
So the projected ownership basically just reinforces what I was saying. Like, I don't think anybody really stands out. The highest owned guy here is Ayton at 15%, but Ayton, Booker, Paul, all, in good spots. I think that, for example, Ayton is a decent pivot to somebody like Jonas Valanciunas at the same price. I prefer Valanciunas, but Valanciunas is also getting like 1.5 times the ownership. So that's a reasonable spot where if you need to save a little bit in terms of ownership and find a more contrarian play, you can go to Ayton. McGee at 4,600 is basically a more expensive version of Hernan Gomez. He is likely to give you 15 to 16 minutes. If Ayton gets in foul trouble or something weird happens, McGee can just win you a slate. So kind of the same play where anytime I can get 1% on JaVale McGee, I'm kind of interested, but nothing that really stands out.
Yeah, this is just sort of easy. You know who gets the minutes now that everybody's back and Booker is healthy. Like they've got 5 guys that are going to play 28-ish minutes or more, and those are the guys you can play, and everything else doesn't look all that ideal.
Yep.
And then we get to the Lakers. Ay. All right, here we go. No, Avery Bradley, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, Talen Horton-Tucker, Austin Reeves, Malik Monk, Kendrick Nunn, or Kent Bazemore. LeBron is in. Trevor Ariza is in. They've signed Jamario Jones and Mason Jones. No idea if those guys are related.
Isn't Mason Jones an MMA fighter?
I don't know. Not that I know of. It could be. I mean, it's a pretty basic name. I think Mason Jones is probably just about anything you want to name.
I thought he was like the Welsh guy.
I don't know. So let's talk about the Lakers here. 11-5 on FanDuel for LeBron James, 11-1 on DraftKings. Russ, on the other hand, 9,800 on FanDuel, 10-4 on DraftKings. I like Russ more than I like LeBron. The ownership doesn't show that.
I like LeBron more than I like Russ.
Interesting. Okay. Talk to me about it. Do you like LeBron?
To some extent. I mean, there's other guys I'd rather get to. I'd rather pay $1,200 less for Karl Anthony Towns. I realize it's a different position, but on DraftKings, LeBron has point guard and small forward eligibility. So really, valuable in that regard, but he just takes on a bigger role without Davis. And I think he still takes on a bigger role than Westbrook does. Without Davis on the floor so far this season, LeBron has averaged 1.44 DraftKings points per minute. Westbrook's at 1.13. They have almost identical usage rates, 28.7% for LeBron, 28.8 for Westbrook, 35.8% assist percentage for LeBron, 30.5 for Westbrook. So like similar opportunities. Westbrook has the edge in rebounding percentage, similar opportunities, but just LeBron being more efficient than Westbrook. And that's not something that I really expect to change. So it's a situation where like if Westbrook's not getting any ownership, obviously he's fine in tournaments, but between the two, I'd still get to LeBron first.
Yeah. The 6% owned Russ on FanDuel, 7 on DraftKings. I just want to take those shots. If like they don't have any other real bodies, that dude's going to gun. I I want Russell Westbrook at 6% owned, no matter how shitty he is.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I want that shot.
The positional eligibility for LeBron drives up the ownership too.
Yeah, that helps a lot when you're point guard, small forward. The bigger question is, what in the world do we do with the rest of this Lakers team? Because the second highest owned guy in this game on either FanDuel or DraftKings is Isaiah Thomas at 4K on DraftKings, which I never thought that I would say this year or basically ever again. And I don't even think it's crazy. I think it's completely reasonable.
I think he looks good. He played a bunch of minutes. He played like 24 minutes in his first game. He played 32 and a half last game. He's only 4K. So far, he's played a total of about 50 minutes without Davis on the floor. So total with the Lakers, he's played 54 minutes, 23.9% usage rate, 0.79 DraftKings points per minute, doing nothing in the way of peripherals, which I think makes sense given that they have some combination of LeBron, Westbrook, Rondo on the floor all the time. Thomas is essentially just a scorer at this point. But at 4K, if he's going to play 32 minutes here, he's going to look pretty good.
This is a team that's about to give 120 minutes to Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, Rondo, and Isaiah Thomas, three of which play the exact same position. Phoenix might score 200 points today.
And none of which play particularly well all the way around.
No. Like they're going to play a lot of some combo of Rondo, Isaiah Thomas, and Russ together. Yeah. Devin Booker is going to Chris Paul and Devin Booker are just going to eat these guys alive. They can't stop them. This isn't even like I'm not sure how they can't. This is as bad of a defense as you can put together on an NBA floor. None of these pieces fit together.
Are they going to throw Isaiah Thomas on Mikal Bridges or something?
Probably. And that's going to go pretty well for Bridges.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I don't know what they're going to do here. Who else do we play besides Isaiah Thomas?
DeAndre Jordan at 3,800 is reasonable. Not any sort of a priority, but he played about 21 minutes last game. I think it's likely you get similar playing time here. He's getting 12% ownership, so I think that's about where it should be. This one's really interesting to me, right? Jordan could play more minutes here,
yeah,
but doesn't have to. So let's say you're expecting Jordan to play 20 to 22 minutes at whatever DeAndre Jordan does, 1 fantasy point per minute at 12% ownership. Or you can pay $100 less for 16 minutes or 13 minutes or whatever, 15 minutes of Hernan Gomez at 1.35 at 1% ownership.
Yeah. Kind
of interesting to me to go the other direction and not be on the Jordan spot. But that's just me still trying to justify playing this guy every day. But Jordan looks fine at 3,800, likely to play 20 to 22, certainly could play more against Ayton and McGee if the Lakers wanted to go that route.
I think he might have to. Or they go to, what is it, Jay Huff as a center potentially? I don't think they want to go to LeBron at the 5 against Ayton and JaVale.
They just played Vooch and Jordan played 20 minutes.
Who played the backup 5 in that game? Tony
Carmelo
Bradley
Anthony.
Okay.
Carmelo Anthony started the second half.
Vooch is different though in that he's going to be more of a perimeter based big instead of I wouldn't be surprised if we got 28 out of Jordan today.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. The fact that they started Anthony in the second half, I don't think bodes particularly well for Jordan.
Yeah. What does JaVale do to the Lakers' second unit?
Well, depending on it might be JaVale versus Jordan.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the answer either way is what he does to everybody, and it's score 1 million fantasy points per minute.
Oh my God, this is going to be a wild one. Are you getting to Ellington, Melo, Rondo, Ariza? Is anything else here appealing to you?
Not really. I don't mind Melo at 4,600, especially given there's a pretty good chance he gets some center minutes. We know that those are valuable. I don't really want to pay 3,900 for Ellington unless I really have to. Rondo's kind of interesting just in the sense that everybody's going to play Isaiah Thomas, and I think he is where people should be going. But if this game played 1,000 times, it's not like you'd be surprised if a decent chunk of those times Rondo just ends up getting more minutes than we expect at the expense of Isaiah Thomas. So kind of interesting there, but I don't really see a ton here that I like outside of the guys we've talked about.
Anything else you want to touch on this slate?
Seems like a slate where ownership's going to play a really big role. Yeah. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I've enjoyed I don't really enjoy talking about these slates because it feels like as soon as we finish, like 30 minutes later, everything we said is useless. But I've enjoyed playing them just because I think that it's difficult. The reason people say NBA DFS is so difficult is because projections these days are very good and people, know how to use them. So you kind of have to find edges elsewhere to find ways to win on slates like this, where you have this much news and this much like uncertainty. It just naturally makes the projections not quite as good because they're more so just educated guesses at things that we've never seen happen before. So it puts you in a situation where relying on ownership and being willing to play contrarian is a little bit more beneficial than it normally is during like a normal NBA season.
Injury report video, GPP play videos, deeper dive. That's you for the rest of the day.
Yep.
There it is, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hit that like button on your way out the door. Subscribe to the channel, notification bell. Thank you once again to No House Advantage for being the sponsor here. That's it. Good luck tonight, everybody. We're back again tomorrow doing it all again. Peace.